So I'm speaking with James Kenny, CEO of Frontier Rare Earths again today, and we're going to take a closer look at the key project Zaankopsdrift. Now, James, the first thing we'll just kind of work on here is the size of the resource. It's very large already. How did you get the resource so large, and how did you guys initially get this project?
We identified the rare earth sector in late 2004, early 2005 as one which had some pretty compelling market dynamics. As you may know, there's only 2 rare earth mines in the world, both of which are in China. China dominates supply. So we saw a very clear market opportunity, and we felt the part of South Africa where we had a significant competitive advantage due to our history was prospective. So we actually identified what we felt was prospective ground, and we applied for a prospecting right, and that was granted to us in 2006. So if you like, this asset was discovered rather than acquired, and we've been working fairly judiciously over the last 5 years in advancing the project and advancing Zaankopsdrift to where it is today, which is a very significant resource, very advanced. We did a 43-101 study as part of our IPO and prospectus drafting last year, and what that confirmed was that we have a resource which today, above our economic cutoff, is about 43 million tonnes, and more importantly, I suppose, has approximately 950,000 tonnes of what we call TREO, total rare earth oxides, above our economic cutoff.
Okay, it's very interesting. So even though you're new to the market, you're not really a new rare earths company. You've been around for nearly 5 years. Can you just take us now through what the grade's like in the project, how it looks, and the distribution of the grade?
Yeah. I mean, look, we've spoken earlier, Ian, obviously, about how grade is very significant, and grade speaks to revenue, or certainly part of the equation. What we have in Zaankopsdrift is, as I said, a deposit which has a grade of approximately 2.3%. But we've had a bit of geological good fortune, and the geological good fortune is that through a process of preferential chemical weathering, we have identified a number of enriched zones sitting within the total resource. An example or description I've used occasionally is our global resource is like a Russian doll, and you've got the big doll on the outside, inside of which there is a smaller doll, of which is higher grade, and inside of which there's a smaller doll again. So if you peel off the layers of the onion, you get into a high-grade core. In this case, our high-grade core is something we refer to as the Zaankopsdrift B zone, which represents approximately half of our resource, and which has an indicated grade of 3.65%. And importantly for us, that we think will be the focus of our production efforts for the first 10, 12, 15 years.
Okay, so grade is key on this project, is it?
Grade is important,
okay,
but there are other things which are key, and that's the distribution by element.
Okay.
So what makes up, whether you're 2%, 3%, 4%, what makes up your grade, and what is the distribution by elements? Because absolutely critically in the rare earth sector, each of these 15 elements have their own uses, their own supply dynamic, demand dynamic, and critically their own prices, ranging from, I'd have to say, close to zero in some cases to today nearly $3,000 a kilo for some of the more valuable, scarcer elements.
Okay, it's really interesting. So large project, grades are looking good. Your production kind of anticipations, expectations for this project, how does that compare to the other players in the market who are in production or moving towards production?
There are obviously a lot of players in the market, and people see the same commercial opportunity that we see. I think there's differing timelines out there. Our timeline, we think, is aggressive but achievable, and that sees us in production in 2015. And I think one of the reasons why we think we can fast track and meet that timeline is due to our location. We're sitting on surface in a mining friendly country, in a mining jurisdiction, close to infrastructure. We're approximately, for example, 30 kilometers from the nearest railhead. We're 250 kilometers from a deep water port, where there's a lot of similar types of facilities that we wish to develop: power, water, roads, etc., etc. So I think 2015 is where we will, if we achieve that, which we very much hope to, I think that'll put us in production before the majority of the competing projects out there.
And another interesting point about the rare earth sector is a lot of the other projects out there, the capex they're talking about to put these things in production is very, very large numbers. I know you haven't got your scoping study out yet, but where do you feel your OPEX and CAPEX is going to put you on that table?
Yeah, again, you're honing in on the right issues. We don't have our CapEx out there, and if you look at the peer companies, I mean, there's CapEx ranges that I've seen from 2.3 billion down to the 500 million level. What will drive CapEx are some of the points that I referred to earlier in terms of advantages. You know, are you open pit or are you underground? Are you near infrastructure? Are you operating in an area of environmental sensitivity? Have you high radioactivity levels that you need to address in some shape or form? So I think, whereas we don't know our CapEx yet, and that will come out in the scoping study, I'd be pretty confident that we'll be at the lower end of industry CapEx.
That's great. And of course, another big area for rare earth element projects is metallurgy. What can you tell us about what you understand about the metallurgy at your project today?
Well, you've done your homework, because metallurgy is absolutely key, and in many cases it can be a showstopper for projects. The reason being is that rare earths don't occur in their free form. They occur bound up in host rock, host minerals, from which you need to crack or liberate the rare earth elements. I mean, the most recent reports I've read, and that rare earths are hosted in up to 200 different types of host mineral, the very large majority of which nobody has ever established a commercial extraction process for the rare earths. Now, we're quite fortunate in that the two most prevalent rare earth elements are something called monazite and something called bastnasite. Monazite, for example, is what Lynas, a very large company in Australia, are extracting rare earths from in their Mount Weld deposit, and bastnasite is what Molycorp are principally focused on. We're principally focused on monazite as the primary host material we have. So the important thing for us is that there is an established extractive process to recover, to crack monazite, which we are in the process through our metallurgical consultants seeking to optimize.
Okay, sounds really interesting. You got a lot of areas we've covered there already. Just last question I just want to end on here is when you look at like offtake, strategic partnerships, we see a lot of that in this industry as well. Should we be expecting to see anything from that from Frontier in the next 12 months?
Well, I think the important, in many ways, the catalyst for us is getting to the scoping study, because offtake, technical participation, strategic investors are all things which are on our menu, and I'd be pretty optimistic that we will unlock. The important thing to do is that you want to go into those types of discussions effectively from a position of strength and a position of knowledge. So when we have our scoping study, we will know our CapEx, we will know our OpEx, we will know our flow sheet, and these are absolutely critical matters that you need to have addressed before you can engage in a meaningful way with partners. What I do know is that our deposit stands up very well against anything that's out there, and I know that based on the, everyone call it initial discussions we've had with a lot of interested groups, that Zaan-Kopsdrift is an asset they find very interesting.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, James, and look forward to seeing that scoping study.
Thanks, Ian.